James Anderson stared at the massive alien ship hovering above New York City. The vessel resembled a metallic jellyfish, its tentacle-like appendages dangling toward the skyscrapers below. As the Secretary of Defense, he prepared for many scenarios: nuclear war, terrorist attacks, even biological weapons. But an alien invasion? That wasn't in the handbook. So, James said, turning to the president, "I suppose we should try talking to them first?" President Rebecca Walsh nodded grimly. "Protocol says we attempt peaceful communication before considering military options." "Protocol?" James snorted. "Did Protocol consider that they might turn us all into alien smoothies?" Rebecca shot him a withering look. "Let's try not to jump to worst-case scenarios, shall we?" "Ma'am, with all due respect, there's a spaceship the size of Central Park floating over Manhattan. I think we have already reached the worst-case scenario." The Situation Room buzzed with activity as military personnel and scientists scrambled to establish contact with the visitors. Dr. Tom Phillips, head of xenolinguistics at MIT, had been flown in on short notice. Despite having written 3 books on theoretical alien communication, he looked utterly terrified. "Dr. Phillips," Rebecca called. "Any thoughts on how we should say hello?" Tom adjusted his glasses nervously. "Well, Madam President, I have spent my career preparing for this moment. My recommendation is to transmit mathematical sequences, followed by simple pictographs." "Mathematical sequences?" General Marcus Stone scoffed. "Why not just send them a fruit basket with a nice Welcome to Earth card?" Tom glared at him. "Mathematics is believed to be universal, general. 2 + 2 = 4 everywhere in the universe. Unless they have 3 fingers and count in base 6, James muttered. "We need to try something," Rebecca insisted. "Dr. Phillips, proceed with your transmission." As Tom began sending carefully crafted signals toward the alien craft, the room fell silent. Minutes passed with no response, then an hour. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, a deep, resonating sound filled the room as the aliens responded. What came through the speakers was a series of clicks, whistles, and rumbles that made absolutely no sense to human ears. "Well," Rebecca looked at Tom expectantly, but Tom's face had gone pale. I have no idea what they are saying." "Fantastic," James said. "Our top expert on alien communication just admitted he can't communicate with aliens." "Money well spent, America." "It will take time to decipher their language," Tom protested. "Time we may not have," General Stone pointed out, gesturing to the monitors. The alien ship had extended what appeared to be weapon systems along its underside. "They are arming themselves," James observed. "Or maybe that's how they say hello," Rebecca suggested hopefully. The answer came moments later when a blue beam shot down from the vessel, vaporizing an empty ferry in the Hudson River. The boat disappeared instantly, leaving only steam rising from the water's surface. That, James said dryly, did not look like a friendly greeting. Over the next 48 hours, similar ships appeared over major cities worldwide. London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, all hosting their own metallic visitors. Communication attempts universally failed, and each demonstration of power grew more concerning. In Rio de Janeiro, the aliens levitated a small, uninhabited island 300 feet into the air before dropping it back into the ocean, creating a tsunami that thankfully caused minimal damage. The United Nations convened an emergency session, with representatives from all nations gathering to discuss humanity's response. The meeting quickly descended into chaos. "We must strike first," the Russian ambassador shouted. "Show them our strength and risk annihilation." China's representative countered. "Their technology is clearly superior." The debate raged on until Secretary General Nadia Kumar banged her gavel repeatedly. "Enough," she shouted. "This squabbling will get us nowhere. We need a unified approach." From the back of the room, a soft voice spoke up. All heads turned to see Dr. Susan Parker, a relatively unknown physicist from Australia. "If I may," she said, approaching the microphone, "I believe we have been thinking about this all wrong." "And who exactly are you?" the French ambassador asked skeptically. "Dr. Susan Parker. I specialize in quantum entanglement and theoretical weapons development." The room fell silent. Susan wasn't what anyone expected from a weapons developer. With her pink-streaked gray hair and grandmotherly appearance, she looked more likely to offer you a cookie than a doomsday device. For the past 20 years, my team has been working on something called Project Prometheus. It was classified beyond top secret. Until now. James Anderson, sitting with the American delegation, leaned forward with interest. He'd heard whispers of Prometheus, but had never been granted clearance to know its details. We have developed technology that can disrupt the fabric of space-time itself, Susan continued. Essentially, we can create localized singularities, miniature black holes, that exist for precisely 3.7 seconds before collapsing. The room erupted with voices. Black holes. Are you insane? Someone shouted. Susan smiled patiently. Not insane, just prepared for a scenario most deemed impossible. Back in Washington, President Rebecca examined the Prometheus files with growing disbelief. This can't be real, she said, looking up at James and Susan, who had been flown in from New York. It's very real, Madam President, Susan assured her. My team began development after the Roswell incident. We recovered technology that suggested other civilizations might possess weapons beyond our comprehension. We needed a contingency plan, and this contingency plan involves creating black holes. Rebecca clarified. Temporary ones, yes. The singularity forms, disrupts all matter and energy within its radius, then collapses on itself, leaving no radiation or long-term effects. James whistled. That's terrifying. It was never meant to be used against humans, Susan explained. Only as a last resort against an overwhelming extraterrestrial threat, like the one currently hovering over our major cities, Rebecca noted. Precisely. Rebecca paced the Oval Office. If we use this technology, what's to stop the aliens from retaliating with something worse? Nothing, Susan admitted. But they're already demonstrating their power. It's only a matter of time before demonstrations become actual attacks. As if on cue, an aide burst into the room. Madam President, the aliens have just abducted the entire population of a small town in Nebraska. 5,000 people gone in seconds. Rebecca's face hardened. Give me the Security Council. Now, the decision to deploy Project Prometheus wasn't made lightly. After 12 more hours of failed communication attempts and escalating shows of force from the aliens, the UN Security Council voted unanimously to authorize its use. The first deployment target was the ship over Sydney, Australia, chosen because it was one of the smaller vessels and positioned over water rather than directly above the city. Susan oversaw the operation from a secure facility in the Australian outback. The Prometheus device itself was surprisingly small, about the size of a microwave oven, but required massive power generators surrounding it. Power at 90%, one of the technicians announced. Target locked, said another. Susan took a deep breath. May whatever gods exist forgive us, she murmured, then nodded to the lead technician. Activate. The device hummed to life, emitting a soft blue glow. On the monitors, they watched as a tiny pinprick of absolute darkness appeared next to the alien vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, the darkness expanded and a portion of the ship began to warp and twist, being pulled into the miniature black hole. The aliens reacted immediately, attempting to move their ship away. But the gravitational pull was too strong for even their advanced technology. Within seconds, nearly a third of the vessel had been consumed before the singularity collapsed as designed. The damaged ship listed to one side, clearly crippled. Then, to everyone's surprise, it began to retreat, climbing higher into the atmosphere until it disappeared from radar. It worked, James breathed, watching from Washington. One down, Rebecca said grimly. 17 to go. What no one expected was the aliens' response. 3 hours after the Sydney incident, all ships simultaneously broadcast a message in perfect English. Humans of Earth. The message began, playing on every television, radio, and electronic device worldwide. We acknowledge your defensive capabilities. We had not anticipated such technology from your species. We propose negotiation. In the UN General Assembly, representatives from Earth sat across from 3 alien delegates. The aliens had humanoid forms, but with gray, translucent skin that seemed to shimmer with bioluminescence. Their 3 eyes, arranged in a triangle, blinked independently of each other. The alien in the center spoke. We are the Zeth'Kar. We have visited many worlds, harvested many resources, relocated many species. few have resisted effectively. So you are basically cosmic bullies, James remarked from his seat beside President Rebecca. The alien's head tilted. We are seekers of efficiency. Resistance is typically inefficient, and yet we resisted, Rebecca pointed out. Yes. The alien's middle eye blinked slowly. With technology we did not anticipate. Our scans indicated your species had not yet developed quantum manipulation capabilities. Susan Parker smiled from her seat. We are full of surprises. Indeed, this changes our assessment. We proposed a resource exchange with minimal population relocation. Now we propose a technology exchange instead. Rebecca leaned forward. No population relocation at all. That's our condition for any negotiation. The aliens conferred among themselves in clicks and whistles before the center. One spoke again. Acceptable. Your black hole technology is of interest to us. And what do you offer in exchange? James asked. Faster than light travel, medical advancement, clean energy production. The negotiations continued for days. What had begun as a potential invasion had transformed into the most important diplomatic mission in human history. The Zeth'Kar, it turned out, weren't inherently malicious, just utterly pragmatic to the point of amorality. They had never encountered a species that skipped several technological steps to develop weapons of last resort before mastering basics like interstellar travel. It's like finding a caveman with a nuclear bomb, one Zeth'Kar diplomat explained to James during a break. Fascinating, if somewhat concerning. James chuckled. We humans have always been good at finding new ways to kill things. It's one of our less charming qualities. 6 months later, the first joint human Zeth'Kar research facility opened on neutral territory, the Moon. Scientists from Earth worked alongside the aliens, each carefully sharing technology while keeping certain secrets in reserve. Trust was building, but slowly at the lunar base opening ceremony, James found himself standing next to Susan Parker, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you developed Prometheus? He asked her. Susan shook her head. Never. I always assumed it would gather dust in some vault. Humanity's unused insurance policy. Instead, it saved us from becoming an alien science experiment and gave us a seat at the Galactic table. Susan smiled, though I still wonder if they're being entirely forthcoming about their intentions. James nodded. Oh, they're definitely not. But neither are we. What do you mean? James lowered his voice. Let's just say Prometheus wasn't our only secret project. The president authorized me to tell you that you are being reassigned to Project Olympus. Never heard of it. Exactly as intended. It makes Prometheus look like a water pistol. Susan's eyes widened. Is that necessary now that we have peace? James looked toward the Zeth'Kar delegation, who were demonstrating their floating technology to fascinated human scientists. Peace through strength, Dr. Parker. The Zeth'Kar respect us because we surprise them. Let's make sure we always have another surprise ready. Across the room, the lead Zeth'Kar diplomat caught James's eye and gave what appeared to be their version of a smile. James smiled back, both of them perfectly aware of the game they were playing. It wasn't exactly friendship, but it wasn't war either. It was something new. Interstellar détente backed by technologies too horrifying to use, but too valuable to abandon, as humans and aliens mingled cautiously under the Earth's watchful gaze. James couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Humanity had faced extinction and responded by pulling a technological rabbit out of its hat that even advanced aliens hadn't seen coming. What's so amusing? Susan asked, just thinking that for all their advanced technology, the Zeth'Kar made the oldest mistake in the book, which is, James grinned. They brought harvesting equipment to a black hole fight. 3 years later, humanity had taken its first steps into the wider galaxy. With modified Zeth'Kar technology, human ships now explored neighboring star systems. Earth had become a minor but respected member of what they learned with a loose confederation of spacefaring species. The Zeth'Kar, for their part, had become important trading partners, though their ships maintained a respectful distance from Earth itself. The memories of those tense first days hadn't faded entirely. Diplomatic reception on the newly established Ganymede outpost. James, now serving as Earth's ambassador to interstellar affairs, found himself speaking with Krelvor, the Zeth'Kar who had led the original fleet. I must confess something, Ambassador Anderson, Krelvor said, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. Our initial assessment of Earth was flawed. How so? James asked, sipping his drink. We categorized your species as Class 3, technologically advancing, but vulnerable to soft conquest. We now recognize you were actually Class 5. And what's Class 5? Krelvor's skin rippled with colors. Their equivalent of chuckle. Deceptively dangerous. Species that appear less advanced than they are. Species that develop weapons before developing wisdom. That sounds like an insult. It is a recognition. Of all the species we have encountered, only 3 others developed black hole technology before achieving routine interstellar travel. All 3 are now major powers in the Confederation. James raised an eyebrow. So we are in good company. You are in interesting company, Krelvor corrected. The Zeth'Kar diplomatic registry has officially recategorized Earth as a do not provoke world. It is our highest classification for potential military threats. James couldn't help but laugh. All because of one small black hole. No, Krelvor said seriously. Because our scans detected energy signatures consistent with at least 3 other weapon systems of similar magnitude that you did not deploy. James kept his face carefully neutral. Project Olympus remained absolutely classified, as did Projects Apollo and Artemis. The fact that the Zeth'Kar had detected them was concerning. Your species is puzzling, Krelvor continued. You create weapons that could tear apart reality itself. Yet you also write poetry about small flying insects. You nearly destroyed your own planet with climate change. Yet you pass laws protecting the smallest organisms. You are capable of both tremendous violence and extraordinary compassion. That's humanity in a nutshell, James agreed. We contain multitudes. It makes you unpredictable. The Confederation finds this unsettling. Good, James said with a smile. A little unsettling can be healthy in a relationship. Keeps things interesting. Later that evening, as the diplomatic reception wound down, President Rebecca joined James on the observation deck overlooking Jupiter's massive form. How did your chat with Krelvor go? She asked. Enlightening. Apparently, we are now classified as do not provoke. All because Susan's little science project got their attention. Rebecca smiled. Not just Susan's project. The combined ingenuity of humanity when our backs are against the wall. She paused. Do you think we will ever tell them the truth? What truth is that, Madam President? That Prometheus was theoretical until 3 days before we used it. That we rushed into production based on Susan's calculations and got lucky it worked at all. James laughed. Absolutely not. Let them think we have had it for decades. Let them wonder what else we might have hidden away. As they stood watching the cosmic ballet of Jupiter's moons, James reflected on how close humanity had come to becoming just another conquered species. Instead, one desperate gamble had not only saved Earth, but catapulted humanity onto the galactic stage. You know what the real irony is? James said finally. What's that? For centuries, we looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone, if we'd find friends out there. Then we finally make contact, and what saves us isn't friendship or understanding. It's our ability to create a weapon so terrifying it gives even advanced aliens pause. Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. Peace through strength. The oldest story in human history, just on a much bigger stage. And with much bigger weapons, James added, as their shuttle prepared to return to Earth. James took one last look at the stars that now represented not just distant lights, but places humanity would soon visit. The universe had turned out to be full of life, not all of it friendly. But humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through peaceful overtures, but by demonstrating that even a young species could create technologies that defied imagination, technologies beyond nightmare. The greatest deterrent, after all, wasn't the weapon you used. It was the weapons your enemies thought you might have hidden away, waiting for the moment when peaceful negotiations failed.